I missed you guys, man. Even though it's been like 4 days, I truly did miss you guys. By the way, you guys like that Gear 5 OST in the back? That shit was gas. That episode was amazing. But let's get serious. I have to save my recklessness for my agenda videos. The problem with titles in One Piece. Some titles in One Piece can be interpreted in many different ways by the fans. Some titles in One Piece aren't necessarily that concrete due to specific circumstances, and then that leads people to completely invalidate titles as a whole. The titles I'm referring to in this video are specifically the world's strongest title, so in this case we'll be talking about the world's strongest creature, which is Kaido, the world's strongest man, which was Whitebeard, and the world's strongest swordsman, which is yours truly, Dracula Mihawk. Hey guys, once again, if y'all could hit that sub button, it would make your boy's day. I know some of y'all been dodging that sub button for a while now, and I know you're listening to me with a little smirk on your face saying, yeah, that motherfucker's talking about me. Yes, I'm talking about you. Stop playing these games. All three of these titles have their different perceptions and different controversy within the fandom. Let's discuss Kaido's title first. In Kaido's introduction, the narrator went into a whole spill of the lore about his character. The biggest controversy with this title is that people believe that this solidifies him as the strongest character in One Piece, mainly because they believe being the strongest creature also means you're stronger than all the humans, because humans could technically be a creature. In some definitions, I guess you could consider humans as creatures, but in One Piece I don't necessarily think so. Kaido, as we know, isn't a human. He's what you call an Oni. When Law tells the group about Kaido back in Punk Hazard and refers to him as a creature, Nami says, what? He's not even human? This makes it seem like the word creature in One Piece does not reference humans based on Nami's reaction. It's something they use for animals or things that aren't human. This is probably the same reason why Big Mom called Kaido that thing rather than referring to him as that man, which is why even in today's world referring to someone as a thing would be utterly disrespectful, because you would be implying that they're not human. Another problem with Kaido's title is that whenever it's mentioned, it's like the narrator is quoting people whenever they refer to statements about Kaido. People say in a 1v1 bet on Kaido. Out of every living thing in the world, this pirate is said to be the strongest creature alive. Law says he is often called the strongest creature. Even in an out of manga source, he's stated to be known as the strongest creature alive. I'm not saying Kaido ain't the strongest creature, because just by looking at the story, you can come to that conclusion yourself. But his title definitely is different from other world's strongest titles like Whitebeard's and Mihawk's, for example. Nobody ever said people say Whitebeard's the strongest man in the world, or Mihawk is often called the strongest swordsman in the world. That part right there, what people say, or he's known as or often called, leaves the interpretation that not everyone thinks that way. Mihawk and Whitebeard's title are a consensus in the One Piece world. So far, every character has acknowledged their position and never implied their titles to be up to people's interpretation. I don't think anyone besides Law has referred to Kaido as the strongest creature. Could be wrong. You have Killer who's making up his own shit about him being the strongest pirate, and yes, the characters these statements come from matters. If you want to take what Killer said as concrete, that's all up to you. Let's say that's true and Kaido is stronger than humans because he's the strongest creature and humans are creatures. This then creates another problem. Does that mean the world views Kaido as stronger than Whitebeard? Because the world believes Whitebeard was still the strongest. Does this title overwrite Whitebeard's title as the world's strongest man? I think not. It wasn't portrayed that way either. Whitebeard was portrayed in a way greater light than Kaido. People thought he was still as strong as the Pirate King. If Kaido's title actually meant he was stronger than literally everybody in One Piece, including humans, wouldn't he be portrayed to be stronger than Whitebeard? Lastly, let's say this title does make him the strongest character in One Piece. The title would most likely get retconned in the future because as a shonen story, the villains you face gradually increase in strength as the main characters grow stronger. And this is obviously for the sake of the story. And characters shown later on typically look stronger in comparison to villains prior, and this is known as power creep. For more information, check out my narrative transcends all video. So regardless, I doubt Kaido being the strongest would ever make sense in One Piece, regardless of if you believe the title confirms that or not. Now let's move on to the world's strongest man, Whitebeard. There's controversy around Whitebeard's title even when he was in his prime regarding Roger. People believe this title is not deserving to Whitebeard since the time he had it, Roger was sick. For some people that use Adam manga sources, one of the more credible and official data books, Whitebeard was stated to be the strongest back then even in Roger's era. It says the world's strongest pirate that even accepted Odin. Odin journeyed with Whitebeard for about 4 years, and Roger suffered from his illness in the last 4 years of his life. 5, meaning Whitebeard should still be considered the strongest even when Roger was not sick. Even when Roger was sick, it was never implied that Roger's sickness made him decline in power. That's one of the main reasons why he even had Crocus to help keep Roger stabilized. Now when it comes to Marineford Whitebeard, this is a different story. At this current time, he still had the World's Strongest Man title. Marineford Whitebeard was a man who was out of his prime and suffering from a severe illness that hindered him in the Marineford War. In Marineford, he suffered from countless heart attacks and other medical issues. To prove just how much weaker Whitebeard was, even in comparison to other versions of him in the past, is when Squirtle was able to stab him. Marco states even in his current condition, he should be able to dodge an attack regardless of how off guard he was or regardless of that being an ally. That must mean his condition is worsening. When Ace first joined the Whitebeard Pirates, he took it upon himself to try and kill Whitebeard several times and catch him off guard. He even attempted to kill Whitebeard in his sleep, but Whitebeard was able to react and send him flying even though he was just sleeping. This shows you how much weaker Marineford Whitebeard was in comparison to a Whitebeard not too long ago. Oda even stated in an SBS he tore off all his medical equipment that helped stabilize the condition, which resulted in him having medical issues in Marineford. Despite all this being shown on Marineford, prior to Marineford, the world considered him the world's strongest man, and that leads to some goobers to believe titles are fake because of that. Since we can come to the conclusion that Marineford Whitebeard couldn't be the strongest, us as the readers can visually read and understand that this title cannot hold out to be true with this current version of Whitebeard. But that's not important when judging whether the title is fake or not. What's important here is how the world views Whitebeard. Mihawk is said to be someone who can sense someone's true power. That's essentially why he tried to gauge Whitebeard's strength to compare what he senses to Whitebeard's reputation. In the world, Whitebeard's reputation is that he was as strong as the Pirate King, the man closest to the One Piece and without a doubt the strongest pirate right now. He kept this reputation until Marineford because from what it seems, the world wasn't aware of Whitebeard's sickness and his decline in strength, because as I said, the man hasn't been active in recent years. There were people who even seen Whitebeard before Marineford and believed he hadn't got any weaker. This is why Whitebeard remained the strongest man, simply because he was still viewed that way and people weren't aware of his decline. That does not mean titles don't mean shit in One Piece, because we know he wasn't actually the strongest man, but the world never got reason to believe he wasn't. That's why the title stayed with Whitebeard. Let's talk about Dracula Mihawk. Now, I'm going to try to refrain from this being a Mihawk versus Shanks video, but I essentially view Mihawk's title as the most important and most concrete with no loopholes. With Mihawk's title, there's honestly no loopholes or anything that disproves that Mihawk isn't the world's strongest swordsman. He's the world's strongest swordsman in name and actuality. Besides the fans harping on lack of feats, which I can't see how that's a problem in a show where we barely see anyone's full power besides the people the Straw Hats fight, it would only make sense if people harped on Mihawk's feats if he went full power and actually tried, and then was shown in a bad light where he didn't look too strong. Y'all do realize Mihawk has not yet once used a named attack in the entire series, right? But the people who typically view Mihawk's title as fraud believe Shanks to be stronger and typically use the argument of dissecting titles like we just did earlier to say titles aren't fact. Even after that breakdown, if you still believe titles are misleading and not a way to gauge someone's strength, something I always tell myself is that Mihawk's title has to be a fact or Zoro's entire journey and dream would be fraudulent. He spent all his time achieving that title throughout the entire series and it doesn't solidify him as the strongest swordsman in the world. Or if you believe the title refers to skill or whatever, in other words, another swordsman can beat him using a sword because he's just more powerful. Some people agree to this because they view Zoro's dream as not important and lesser because he's a side character, because he's not the main character. I don't know how they came to this conclusion since the show is ultimately us following the Straw Hats to see them achieve their dreams. Oda likes to play around with this though. That's why he's a freak. He knows what he's doing, and he's very smart about it. He makes Shanks the most hyped character in One Piece and a swordsman from what we know, and makes Mihawk the most featless and least hyped top tier One Piece character and gives him the title, which creates so much controversy, to the point where his title is constantly in question. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to touch on today regarding those titles. Honestly, there's so much controversy and like discussion about all these titles, which is hilarious. No one ever just left one of those titles alone. There's always constant debate about it, always constant debate of whether it means this or that. As always guys, you enjoyed this video. That took me a while to make. I would appreciate if you guys left a like and subscribe to the channel. As always, I love y'all, and it's time to get back to the Egghead Island agenda with the next video. I'll see you guys then. Peace.